Welcome into a brand new hour of CBS Sports HQ presented by Neutral. It is the JD Squared edition that you have here for HQ, and it's also the Final Four that no one predicted. UConn, the betting favorite now to win it all, and I have to credit our good friend Matt Norlander. He pointed out that 1.9% of all of the brackets from the very beginning picked UConn to win it all.
You know who else picked UConn to win it all? Our Rip Hamilton.
Yep.
He certainly had a strong belief in his former Huskies team. And I mean, it's been a wild few weekends of this NCAA tournament. We can only hope that we get games like we've had.
Yes.
And this Final Four is a Final Four like no other. Since seeding began in 1979, this is the first Final Four without a top 3 seed. Heck, it's the first tournament where no 1 seeds even advanced to the Elite 8. It's crazy when you think about it. And our Chris Hassel, he previewed the Final Four for us. Take it away, Chris.
It's arguably the most unlikely Final Four of all time, with 3 first-timers for the first time in over half a century, 1970 to be exact. Meanwhile, UConn will be looking for its 5th title in the last quarter century. It's 1 have and 3 have-nots, getting ready to blast off to Houston and compete for a national title. The UConn Huskies aren't universally considered one of college basketball's blue bloods, but they've been the most successful program over the last 25 years. Titles in 99, 04, 11, and 14, and now on the cusp of a 5th national title. They're the favorites after rolling every one of their tournament opponents by 15 plus. They're the haves. Now let's meet the have-nots. UConn's semifinal opponent, Miami, a football school that took that meaning to a whole new level back in 1971. When they shut down the basketball program for 14 years. But last year, Jim Larrañaga led them to their first Elite 8 in program history. This year, he's taken them 1 step further, upsetting the top 2 seeds in the Midwest. But the real Cinderellas are in the other semi, as Conference USA faces the Mountain West, which has its first team in the Final Four in San Diego State. Perhaps best known for producing Kawhi Leonard, the Aztecs would have likely been a number 1 seed back in 2020 if not for the tournament being canceled. Several stars from that would-be contender still remain, and they're looking to make up for lost time with an imposing defense and a grinded-out way of play, a clash of styles with their opponent. The high-flying 3-point launching Owls from Boca Raton, Florida Atlantic, a school that started playing basketball in 1988, has a chance to be the biggest pre-tournament long shot in March Madness history. They were 200-1 to start the tournament. Now 6-1 to complete one of the greatest underdog stories in sports history. FAU played in front of its largest crowds in program history this season, regularly selling out their 3,000-seat arena. This weekend in Houston, they'll be playing in front of 70,000 plus. It's the Owls, Aztecs, Canes, and Huskies to cap off one of the wildest tournaments we've ever seen. Pure madness from start to finish. And we're not done just yet.
And it all goes down on Saturday. We start with San Diego State tipping off the Final Four at 6:09 p.m. Eastern against Florida Atlantic on CBS. And you can also watch it on the March Madness Live app, along with UConn and Miami. Plus, we will have all the coverage from Houston beginning Thursday, streaming live on CBS Sports HQ. Now joined by Chip Patterson, a man with his pulse on all of the action. Chip, let's preview the Final Four, and we're going to start with Florida Atlantic versus San Diego State. Both teams playing in the Final Four for the first time in their program's history. You can imagine there's going to be a little mix of nerves and excitement. What's a matchup that we should be on the lookout for?
This is going to be really about FAU and their three-point shooting going up against San Diego State and the three-point defense. And this is very significant because FAU, in terms of the way that it plays, it's got about 4 guys that are all around 40% three-point shooters, very reliable. They do the pace and space thing. But in this NCAA tournament, they have not been shooting the three very well. They rely on the three almost as much as anybody in the country, but getting those to go down like they are right here, well, they've been a little bit few and far between. 14, and they are going up against a San Diego State defense that ranks number 2 in the entire country in three-point defense. You hear Creighton's coaches talk about how it felt like there were 2 San Diego State defenders in different positions at the same time on every single shot. They chase you off the three-point line, they contest absolutely everything, and just go ask Alabama and Creighton, who could not make a three-pointer if they paid for it, what it was like going up against these Aztecs on the perimeter. So we know that FAU, on average, is going to shoot a ton of three-pointers, like in excess of 20 per game. But how many are they going to make against this San Diego State defense? That, to me, just seems like a huge matchup in dictating who advances to the national championship.
That's going to be certainly one to keep an eye on for sure. Now, when talking about Florida Atlantic, they were picked 5th in the Conference USA preseason poll, but they have defied all expectations. Give me one player on that team to keep an eye out for on Saturday's matchup.
The big man down low from Russia, Vladislav Golden. He ended up getting himself named to the all-region team with his performance, I think really, especially against Kansas State there in Madison Square Garden. I mean, he pulled down double-digit rebounds, and he was such a force inside, and that was something that FAU needs. He's been, well documented. He starts his career at Texas Tech a couple years ago, ends up taking a red shirt, and in this tournament, in this season, he has become just a dynamic force on the inside. And when they've got so many athletes and so much depth everywhere else on the floor, to be able to have that defensive anchor is so important, especially going up against a team in San Diego State that has a player like Mensa, that has players down low who can really beat you up on the offensive boards. Golden being able to secure those rebounds and limit second chance opportunities for San Diego State is a huge part of the game plan.
You mentioned depth there. The Aztecs, they pride themselves on intensity and being physical. They're boasting a true 9-man rotation, but they only have one player averaging 10 points per game this year, and that player is Matt Bradley. Is he your player to watch for San Diego State?
Yeah, Jenny, and also because we need him to step up. Like, will the real Matt Bradley please stand up? This guy has been the engine and the heart of their offense for multiple years over. They've been the class of the Mountain West Conference, and it feels like Matt Bradley's shot making has been the most reliable offense, and yet in these last couple of games, not particularly reliable. And so I think that wanting to see Matt Bradley be able to get some shots in early, build up some confidence, know that he's going to be able to take advantage of those one-on-one opportunities, it's so important for this San Diego State team. The way that San Diego State plays, there are a lot of one-possession games, but because of players like a Matt Bradley, a Lamont Butler, a Darian Trammell, San Diego State is 9-1 in games decided by 5 points or less this season. So you want to see Matt Bradley be able to find his form again after really missing a lot of shots over the last couple rounds.
Yeah, fifth-year senior, spent his first 3 seasons at Cal before joining SDSU last season. I did not think we were going to get an Eminem reference in this section, but hey, you never know what's going to happen when you're talking to Chip Patterson. All right, we're going to look at the coaches now. So you got Dusty May in his 5th season with the Owls, and then Brian Dutcher, who's his 6th season leading the Aztecs. But he also spent years learning from the legend and Steve Fisher there. So who do you think has the coaching edge between Florida Atlantic and San Diego State?
Brian Dutcher in San Diego State. And to me, that is not a knock on Dusty May, who has done a terrific job on the court and off the court of helping FAU really level up during his 5 years there in Boca Raton. But this is looking at that experience with Steve Fisher, because so much of being a head coach in these NCAA tournament scenarios is being able to understand how to manage your guys, what kind of message you want to give them. And Brian Dutcher was an assistant on the staff when Steve Fisher won the national championship in 1989. He was assistant on the staff with the Fab Five run in 1991 and an assistant on the staff with the Fab Five run in 1992. Now has the experience of being at the Final Four changed a good bit in the last 20 years? Absolutely. But being a young person in these tense environments, I think that that's something that can translate across generations. And so when you've got Dusty May and Brian Dutcher, I do think the coaching advantage really for some of the intangible off-court player management stuff, I think it does lie with the more experienced coach at San Diego State.
Makes perfect sense when you lay it out that way. All right, I got to ask, which team do you think continues to make history? Is it going to be San Diego State or Florida Atlantic? The Aztecs are favored by 2 here. What do you like?
I like San Diego State to win this game 64-60. And a lot of this comes down to San Diego State's defense. In postseason play this year, which is 3 Mountain West Conference tournament games and 4 games in the NCAA tournament, San Diego State's opponents are averaging 56.5 points per game. San Diego State's opponents have not reached 65 points, and only 2 have cracked 60. And I just think that this is an extremely confident bunch. And as they go into this game against FAU, they know that it is going to be an Owls team coming in with a lot of energy and a lot of aggressiveness. They slow the game down, they play it at their pace, and they win it in the final minutes. So I've got San Diego State 64, FAU 60. For those keeping track at home, that would be a San Diego State cover and under the current total.
So you're saying it's going to be another thriller when it comes to March Madness. San Diego State, the first team from the Mountain West to make the Final Four, actually the first team to even make the Elite Eight. So they're hoping to just break history here. He's Chip Patterson previewing the Final Four matchup between San Diego State and Florida Atlantic. Don't go anywhere, Chip. We need more from you soon. But if there was ever a time to listen to the Eye on College Basketball podcast, I would say this should be it. They have an Elite Eight recap, a Final Four preview, all ready for your listening pleasure. Go check it out. Check out the Eye on College Basketball podcast now.
And Chip Patterson back with us here on HQ for a Final Four preview. This time we're talking UConn and Miami. The Huskies, they've been dominant, Chip. We showed their path to the Final Four, winning those games by 15 or more. And then Miami kind of using that pain from the Elite Eight last year to get into the Final Four. Chip, what is the key to winning in this matchup?
Oh, this is going to be about offensive rebounds. And if I could even get specific here, it is going to be Miami preventing UConn from getting offensive rebounds. Because one of the reasons why UConn has one of the most efficient offenses in the country is because they're able to extend a possession. They're able to get second chance points, and they do it with the big man down low, Adama Sanogo. They are getting more out of the 7'1" freshman Donovan Clingan, who is coming on later at the end of his rookie season. And Miami, boy, they lean hard on Norchad Omier, but that man is 6'7", and he gets out there and he throws his hindquarters around. He gets a good box out. He plays so much bigger than his listed height and weight that it is going to be very difficult to be able to do that against the likes of Adama Sanogo. So the glass, the rebounding battles that we have right now going on between Norchad Omier and Adama Sanogo and Donovan Clingan, like that is going to be what determines who ends up having the upper hand in this game. Because if Miami, which is not a particularly strong defensive team, can limit UConn to one shot and that's it, they give themselves a chance. They give Isaiah Wong, Jordan Miller, Nigel Pack, the rest of those great Miami offensive players a chance to keep pace in this game.
And you mentioned some of their players there on the U. Let's talk more about it. Obviously, the U, they have Jordan Miller coming off of that perfect Elite Eight performance. And then, of course, Isaiah Wong. For you, who is the guy to watch on the Canes?
Oh, it's Jordan Miller. And Isaiah Wong was the ACC Player of the Year for a good reason, and he made so many big shots in that Elite Eight win against Texas in the second half. But Jordan Miller, yes, historic. You know, like we have not seen a performance like that, not missing a shot, scoring more than 25 points since Christian Laettner back in 1992 against Kentucky. And while Jordan Miller did not have one singular highlight quite like what Christian Laettner had with that game winner against the Wildcats, he certainly was stepping up in a moment where they needed him the most. You know, I looked at him coming into the year and I thought, you know, 6'7", rangy, got a lot of length and a lot of potential to take over, but I didn't think that he was going to have as much of an offensive responsibility as he's had in this NCAA tournament. And so I want to watch Jordan Miller on the offensive side off a historic performance, yes, but I also want to watch him on the defensive side because UConn, one of its great advantages against every opponent that the Huskies have had is what they're able to do offensively with their long guards and with Jordan Hawkins in particular. Jordan Miller is going to have that defensive assignment often. And so I need Jordan Miller to be able to be as good offensively as he was in the Elite Eight win and then just as strong defensively as he's been all year. That's why Jordan Miller is my player to watch for the Hurricanes.
And we can't talk about UConn without talking about Adama Sanogo and his just dominant performance in the tournament so far, averaging 20 points per game. And then also, after a little bit of a slow start, Jordan Hawkins just kind of on fire against Arkansas and the Zags. For UConn, Chip, who's your player to watch there?
It's Sanogo. I know that he's the odds-on MOP, most outstanding player at the betting markets, but consider just how important he is, because in Sanogo's 3-year career, UConn is undefeated, 19-0 when Sanogo scores 20 or more points. And of course, he's got 80 points total, averaging 20 per game here in the NCAA tournament. No other player in the Final Four has more points in this NCAA tournament than Adama Sanogo. Also, here in this NCAA tournament, he's averaging 9.8 rebounds per game and shooting 66% from the field. He was one of the best players in the country in terms of field goal percentage. He's been one of the best players in the Big East all year in both scoring and rebounds. And again, back to the unique matchup of this game. You look at the scouting report for Miami, and it says the teams that can give Miami trouble defensively are the ones that on offense can get the ball inside to a dominant post player and move the ball around with great ball movement. Those are two things UConn does really well. And so if you're going to take advantage of Miami's greatest weakness, which is an interior post presence, Adama Sanogo's got to have a big game.
And we have some great storylines when it comes to the coaching here for UConn. Dan Hurley, it's his first Final Four trip as a head coach. And then Jim Larrañaga, he's been there before. It's his second. His George Mason team, ironically beating a UConn team to clinch Mason's spot in the Final Four in 2006. When it comes to coaching, Chip, which team has the edge?
This is mostly a wash, Jacqueline, but I'm leaning Jim Larrañaga, and here's why. Because while Dan Hurley made some great adjustments in the middle of the season, right? They go 2-6 over an 8-game stretch. He puts in some adjustments. They go 13-2 since then. I've seen terrific adjustments within a game from Jim Larrañaga in Miami. And one of the statistics I can turn your attention to is the fact that the first half scoring differential for Miami is -2. The second half scoring differential is +46. The Hurricanes have cumulatively outscored their opponents in their 4 NCAA tournament wins by 46 points, twice of that being by double digits. And I think those are halftime adjustments because Miami is not a very deep team. You know, they do get a little bit from Joseph coming off the bench. They are able to go maybe like even 7 deep. But for the most part, this is a group that relies on its starting 5. I think about when they were shooting those free throws at the end of the game and you see the other 4 all arm in arm. That starting 5 has been the core, and that group has been responsible for that +46 second half scoring differential. I think that's coaching. So it's very, very balanced, but I give a slight edge to Coach L, Jim Larrañaga from Miami.
All right, in Miami, they're 5.5-point dogs against UConn in this matchup. So, Chip, who wins and who covers?
UConn's going to win. UConn's going to cover. And I think that Miami's going to make it interesting. And Miami can make it interesting by scoring points. So I do think it's going to be a very high-scoring game. I've got UConn 80, and I've got 71 for Miami. So a 9-point win. UConn covers. We go over the total, and I come back to the scouting report. You're looking at it, and scouts say the way that you beat this Miami defense is with great ball movement and a good post presence. And UConn is one of the best in the country when it comes to working the ball around to get a good high-percentage shot. And Adama Sanogo is one of the best big men in the country. I think on the other end of the floor, Miami will have success. They've got too much offensive firepower, but they're not going to be able to get enough stops. UConn 80, Miami 71. UConn covers over the total.
All right, that is Chip Patterson joining us here on HQ with a UConn Miami preview. He's taken UConn to win and UConn to cover. Thanks so much, Chip. Good stuff as always. We appreciate it. And with the Final Four set, make sure you download the March Madness Live app so you can catch all of the action. You can get every game on your phone, tablet, or favorite streaming device. Download that March Madness Live app right now.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.